Welcome back to another video. Today I've used ChatGPT to give me a name for an energy drink brand, and I'm going to design the packaging for it. The name that ChatGPT came up with was Spark Harbour. So to help me with this, I started to look up images such as anchors, as you can see on the screen. And then I also had a look at different logos that had already existed for Spark and Harbour. So after this, as you can see, I started grabbing some images off of Google, and I took them into Illustrator to have a mess around with them. as you can see here, I started to have a look for a background that I could use for the design work. So I had a look for a lightning background that was free. I found one that I liked. It was on, I believe it was on PNG Tree. So after I found that, I decided to use that for the design, and I used some tools in Photoshop to help me to change the colours on it for the other can designs. At this point I was looking for a mock-up online. I found one, but when I went to use it, it turns out it wasn't very good, so I used a different mock-up that I already had from some of my uni work previously. The mock-up that I used I feel was much better because it was much easier to work out what I had to do. The car on the screen is my car, but it's only because I was editing the photo before. So as you can see, I start to have a look at the different mock-ups. This one I decided wasn't the best and wasn't what I wanted to use, so in the end I did switch over to one that I had already on my hard drive. Here you can see me start to use the shape from the mock-up that I got to start creating the design. You can see I created a clipping mask of the background that I selected from PNG tree, and you'll see in a second that the mask was created, and I tried to put the logo on, but I started to have a mess around with this and change some of the design work. If you drink a lot of energy drinks, or you know a lot of the brands such as Monster or other ones similar to those, you can see in this image how I've decided to use the zero sugar on the top of the can around where the lip is, and I feel like this really helps with the design work. I had a can of Monster, so I had a look at it to see how it would work with my design, and so as you can see I put zero sugar. I added the two pluses because on the actual can it would have like the other bits of the stuff it has, so like some of them have taurine in them, so I'd have taurine written on there as well. As you can see here, I was using ChatGPT to give me an idea for some of the names for the drinks. For example, Blue Surge and some of the other ones that I used. I decided to use Blue Surge because sometimes you get a surge of water when you're in a harbour, and so it mixed with the word harbour in the brand name. At this point, I decided to have a look at what it looked like on the mockup. As I was doing it, I was like, I don't like how this mockup looks, so I ended up going on my hard drive and selecting the mockup, which I used for a different project I did called Ethereal Death. At this point, I had found the new mockup that I was going to use, the one that I used for Ethereal Death. It was a much better mockup as it was much easier to look at and understand where things were going to be placed, whereas the one that I originally was using was quite difficult to look at and understand where things were going. So I hope that this mockup would work much better. At this point, I decided to start to move some of the items around to make them work for the mockup. Originally, I made the zero sugar quite large at the top, but in the end, I went back to one of my Ethereal Death cans and used the same size type, like the same point size as that, to help with the design of the can to make it look nice and sharp and easy. As you can see here, the old can design is much better than the new one. I don't like the zero sugar, I think it's way too big and it should be more the size of the Mango Burst or the Apple Surge on the Ethereal Death cans. Here you can see me having to mess around with the size of the type to make it so it's correct. I then use the center tool on Photoshop to help me center the type correctly in the middle of the screen. I decided to try adding Spark at the top of the anchor to see how that would work. I didn't like how it looked at first, so I tried adding lots of different effects onto it, such as drop shadows, inner glows, outer glows, that kind of thing. But as I was doing it, it didn't work because it was really difficult to read, and I thought it adds too much at the top of the can. I feel like it should say Spark down the bottom, so that's what I did. As you can see here, I started to change how the design was. This was the final design I did with the spark at the top, but then I realised how bad it looked. So I tried Spark Harbour down the bottom, and I much rather that. I think it looked really smart like that. So that's how I changed it, and that's what I did to it. To get rid of some of the negative space on the design, I added 500ml at the bottom of the can. It's not usually where you'd put it on a Monster or any other energy drink, usually they're on the back or with the nutrition label, but I feel like this worked quite well for my design. Here is the final Blue Surge can. I love the way that the background looks, and I feel like it really works well with the Spark Harbour logo and design. These are the rest of the cans. As you can see, I used the same background, but I changed it using the colour tools in Photoshop to change some of the levels on the colours to help get the vibrant green and the pink and yellow for the other one. If I was to redo this project, I think I would start with a much easier design and go through and improve it over time. So rather than going straight away with the anchor, I would start off with the background and then I would work towards having a much better design overall on the cans. Other than that, I really like the way they come out. I don't think they'd sell well in a shop though, due to the anchor being very black and just simple. I think to sell in the shop, they need to have a little bit more of a design to them, so I shall try this again and there will be an update on the channel soon.